Good morning. I'm Jane with good news for April the 2nd from St. George's Church in Owen Sound. Well, the first weeks of Lent have flown by and now we're over halfway through. Let's see if we can find some good news to fortify us as we continue on this Lenten journey toward Easter. Today's reading is from the Gospel according to St. John, chapter 6, verses 27 to 40. And I'm just going to summarize the first part before I read the last verses. As the passage begins, Jesus is talking to the crowds who followed him after his miraculous feeding of the 5,000. But now he's encouraging those same people to think not about ordinary bread that spoils, but about spiritual bread that endures for eternal life. And this is how the reading concludes in verses 35 to 40. Jesus said to them, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty. But I said to you that you have seen me and yet do not believe. Everything that the Father gives me will come to me, and anyone who comes to me I will never drive away. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I should lose nothing of all that he has given me, but raise it up on the last day. This is indeed the will of my Father, that all who see the Son and believe in him may have eternal life, and I will raise them up on the last day." Well, before discussing this, let's look back briefly to last Sunday's Gospel, the parable of the prodigal son. Our rector, Canon Mark, preached a very powerful sermon on that story, and it was in my mind as I read today's Gospel. Jesus told the story of the prodigal son to illustrate the boundless compassion of God for all his children. The father in the parable represents God as he welcomes the wayward son home with open arms and consoles the older brother. And in the verses that I just read, there's a similar message about God's love. But here, Jesus is speaking directly about God rather than using a parable. I hear God's compassion flowing through Jesus as he offers himself to his listeners. "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." Jesus longs to give them comfort that is even better than a full belly, but he knows that some will not accept this because they don't believe in him. I don't think Jesus is condemning the ones who don't yet believe. Instead, he's yearning for them to turn to him, just as the father in the prodigal son story yearned for the return of his younger son. The words of Jesus that stand out for me in the reading today are, "Anyone who comes to me, I will never drive away." That is such a comforting promise and good news for us. And you know, the more I read the Bible, the more I am convinced that everything God does and says represents his desire to do good to us. God is truly for us and longs to pour out his love and support. And our part is simply to trust in his promises and keep turning back to him when we get distracted. Good things to be doing as we move on through Lent and Holy Week. Thinking about God's compassion also reminded me of a hymn. It's the one called "Drawing the Circle Wide," number 418 in our Common Praise hymn book. So that's the tune that's been playing in my head today. And in place of a closing prayer, let me leave you with these words from the hymn's first verse. "God, the still point of the circle, round whom all creation turns, nothing lost, but held forever in God's gracious arms. Well, that's all from me till the end of April. I hope your power is on after the weekend of ice and rain. God bless you all, and goodbye for now.